You can add a magnetic effect to the draggable elements using some options. The options that we need to use are snap, snap mode, and snap tolerance. In fact, by using the snap option, the draggable elements become aligned to some specific elements, thus adding some magnetic effect. So, to illustrate this, I have created a web page with 2 big developments and 3 sub-developments. Okay, so first let me show you how to add the snap related options. So first, let us add the option to sub1. So $sub1 dot draggable, and the name of the option is snap, and the value of the snap option is false by default. If you want to add the magnetic effect, you need to specify snap to be true. So what will happen now? This sub1 element will be aligned to all the draggable elements. So for that, let me make this sub2 and sub3 also draggable. Now we will not be able to see the difference. So let me copy this and put a comma #sub3. This means this sub1 will now be aligned to sub2 as well as sub3. Why I have made this draggable? Because the snapping will happen only to the draggable elements. Save, refresh. When I try to move this, see, it is touching the border. That is, this one is aligned to this green development. Now let me try to move this to this. See, these two borders are now aligned. But if I try to move this here, it is not touching the border, isn't it? It is not touching the border of this as well. Why? This box will be aligned only to the draggable elements. Now let me make this box also draggable. So I can just put a comma and its ID is main2. So if I specify here #main2, this red box will be draggable to that one as well. See, it is aligned to this big box as well. So by setting the value of snap to true, the element will be aligned to the remaining draggable elements. Now another option related to snap is snap tolerance. So let me specify snap tolerance to be 100. So the snap tolerance is actually the distance in pixels from the edges of the snapping element to happen the snapping. So suppose I specify the snap tolerance to be 100 and let me refresh, and suppose if I move the element from here to here, and if the distance is within 100 pixels, it will jump to the other draggable element to align itself. So let me move this here, and if the distance between the borders of this red box and the remaining draggable elements become 100 pixels, then it will automatically align. So when I move only this much, see, it is jumped to align to the draggable element. So you can specify the snap tolerance to set the distance actually. So the greater the value of snap tolerance, the magnetic effect will also be increased. And the default value of the snap tolerance option is 10. So if you do not set any value, the distance between the edges of the snapping element and the remaining draggable element should be 10 or less than 10 to happen the snapping. Now instead of the value true, you can also specify some element here. Suppose instead of true, I specify main1 here, that is #main1. Now what will happen? This element will be aligned only to the main1 element, that is the parent element. And let me also change this value to 20. Okay, and let us try to see the difference. Refresh. Is the element now being aligned to the green or blue boxes? No, whereas it is getting aligned to the main one element, that is this big box, and it is not getting aligned to this big box as well, whereas it is only getting aligned to the big box because here instead of true, we have set the value of snap to be hash main1. That is to which element the red box should be aligned. So in this case, this main1 should not be draggable. Okay. In the previous case, when we set the value of snap to true, this red box was getting aligned only to the draggable elements. Here, when we set a specific element, this element need not be draggable. So that is why this red box is getting aligned only to this big box. Okay. Now one more option is there. It is snap mode. So let me remove this and let me specify snap to be true. Okay. And snap mode to be outer. The value of snap mode can be outer, inner or both. And the default value is both actually. So if you don't have this, if you move this green box, it gets aligned to all the draggable elements and it gets aligned to the outer as well as the inner borders. So let me make this hash main 2 as well draggable. Okay. And if I try to move this green box, as you could see here, it is getting aligned to the outer edge as well as the inner edge of the other element. So this is because the value of snap mode is both by default. Suppose you want to make this align only to the outer edge. Then what should you do? You can specify snap mode to be outer. In this case, it will be aligned only to the outer edge. So let me refresh and let me move this. See, it is getting aligned, whereas it is not getting aligned to the inner edge of the big box. And if you specify here inner, in this case, this green box will be aligned only to the inner edge. See, here it is not getting aligned, whereas here it is getting aligned. See, it is not getting aligned here, it is getting aligned here. So this way you can add some magnetic effect to your draggable elements using 3 options. What are they? They are snap, snap tolerance and snap mode. The default value of snap option is false, and if you set the value of snap option to be true, the element will be aligned to all the remaining draggable elements. And if you set the value of snap to be some element, then the element will be aligned to that specified element. Then you can also set the snap tolerance. The value of snap tolerance is 10 by default, and snap tolerance is the distance in pixels between the edge of the snappable element to the edge of the remaining elements to which the main element is getting aligned. And you can increase the value, which means you are increasing the magnetic effect, and this value is 10 by default. Then you have one more option, that is snap mode, and its value is both by default. And by setting the value of snap mode to be inner, the element will be aligned only to the inner edge of the other element. And if you set the value of snap mode to be outer, the element will be aligned to the outer edge of the remaining elements or the specified element. So in this lecture, we have seen how to add magnetic effect to the draggable element using snap, snap mode and snap tolerance options.